How long is the recovery time after an ACL reconstruction?
Well, it varies, and the reason why that it varies is because everybody's different. And so this is one of the things that we use here that's a lot different than other places. I was really lucky. Bob Mangine at the University of Cincinnati actually came up with this back in the late 80s and the early 90s. He had a couple papers published on it, and he really changed the whole field of sports medicine by doing this. And what he realized is that some people fall on this end of the spectrum in terms of their mobility, where they're very hypermobile. They can put their feet behind their head kind of person, and the contortionist kind of person, versus down here where you have the bodybuilder guy that can barely bend over and touch his knees right here. And you see those people all the time in society. Well, what's going to happen is one person over here, this person over here, they're not going to heal at the same rate. Their bodies are going to be completely different. Their movement system, their coordination, their muscle firing patterns, their contact injury versus non-contact injury, those kind of things are all going to be different. So what you have to do is use an evaluation-based protocol. Okay? And so what that means is that as you're going along, you have to know what to assess. And when you've done this for a long time, or you've seen a lot of these, you know what to assess. But you have to know both ends of the spectrum. You have to know what looks like more injury. Are we creating more inflammation? Is the quadriceps starting to fire less? Are they having more pain? Are they having more dysfunction? Are they firing their muscles appropriately for walking up and down the stairs? Those kind of things, which should really be pretty easy to get back to doing. But you can't progress beyond that if they can't. You know, if the range of motion's not 100% back, then you can't keep moving down the line. If the swelling's not out of the knee, you got to be careful on what you do down here. But at the same time, most therapists, and really most people in general, do not understand how to teach people how to run and cut and jump. It's just not done. And that should be the basis of all training, in my opinion, but especially when you're rehabbing a kid back from these injuries. And so the shortest time that I've seen that somebody could get back was 13 weeks. And we got a guy back when I was in Cincinnati. He was a defensive tackle, and it was his senior year. And third game of the season, he tore his ACL, and amazingly enough, this kid worked his butt off. We were in there 2 to 3 times a day, hours and hours and hours and hours of time, assessing him, making sure that his strength and his firing patterns were working, looking at the swelling. He was icing, he was taking the game ready home to sleep with him at night, coming back first thing in the morning, starting the rehab process all over again. So at the end of the season, he ended up playing in the bowl game. It was amazing even at that time. So you realize 13 weeks is just a little bit over 3 months. It's kind of unheard of. But strong Division I tackle that doesn't have to run and cut out in the open field. If this would have been a safety, he would have never been able to make it back in that short time period. Now, if you're talking about a female non-contact high school ACL tear, now that can vary, and as I've gotten deeper into my career here, I've even thought that it needs to be slowed down even more, because to really refine their biomechanics, it takes a lot of time for somebody to learn how to control their body to the point where it's unconscious. You know, you have to get unconscious competence in these movements. So whenever they go to cut and plant to catch a ball for a basketball, or to cut when they're dribbling a soccer ball, you need to be able to do the positions unconsciously and control your posture and use your hips appropriately to allow to give yourself the least chance of getting injured. So, with that said, the usual time frame that you're going to see somebody get back, even though it really varies, and it should really vary, is usually somewhere between 6 months to a year. On average, I would say about 9 months is what you're seeing. Actually, some of the studies show that when they put biomarkers in people to see certain things on studies, you can see if they're still healing, that people are still healing up to 2 years after the ACL is put in there in some of the studies that I've seen. And so, and that shows you that there's still a lot going on even 2 years down the road. And most people actually say that they're not fully recovered until the second season. They get back for the first season and they were 80% or 85%. They're really not back completely until they do the whole full year of training over again, and then finally they come back in the second year and they feel like that they're about 100%. So with the answer being probably 6 months to a year, on average 9 months is what you're going to see in terms of returning back to cutting and running and jumping.